Thank you so much for the invitation, Wagstaffe community. It's great to be here and to talking about and having an open contest of ideas in our democratic society, so thank you. So my name's Barbara Jane Murray and I represent the United Australia Party for the Robertson area for the next federal election. I came to politics recently. I'm actually a registered nurse and also a registered mental health professional trained in counselling and psychology. I've worked in our health service here on the coast. I've lived locally for a few years, 6 years here in Gosford. I decided for myself that it wasn't a good idea for me to have an experimental injection. And my doctor also agreed with me. My doctor is a world specialist, and I won't mention his name, in his field, and he was unable to give me an exemption because the AMA stopped him from giving exemptions to his patients. So because of that reason, I lost my job as a health professional. I'm a highly trained health professional and I worked for a local not-for-profit, managing mental health programs and making sure there was equity across the coast and access to our vulnerable populations to make sure that our local mental health and vulnerable communities like the domestic violence issue get serviced with programs and that they actually get what they need. So I come at politics from a different point of view than a lot of you might have. I also have some different beliefs around our COVID pandemic response. And I just want to start by saying that just before I came here today, I did just a little bit of Googling that you might be interested in. So according to Google, there's been 7,000 deaths so far from COVID, and that's a terrible tragedy. I totally agree with that. But did you know that 24,000 people every year die from tobacco? And that's the leading preventable cause of death, and that's every single year. Do you see the government having a response to tobacco deaths like we did with the COVID pandemic? No, you do not. There's also 5,500 deaths every year from alcohol-related disorders. So these are statistics that are commonly known in the health profession. Gordon would also see the harm that alcohol and tobacco does in the ER department, but it is a different response from our government. So I come at this whole political landscape from a very different point of view, and I'm sure a lot of you mightn't have come across that point of view. So the United Australia Party, some of our main policies that we stand for are to stop the mandates. We believe there's a different way to deal with a pandemic, and we believe that response was stopped right from the very beginning, and we could have had a very different result if we had have been given the choice to deal with the pandemic in a different way. So we want to stop the mandates, we want early treatment available across the board, and we want doctors to be able to treat their patients in the privacy of the room with the presentation that they give, and we do not want bureaucracy to be able to tell doctors what to do with their patients. So that's one of the main things. We don't believe in vaccine passports. We believe that if we get to treat people in a different way, that a lot of doctors want to, that we won't need to have vaccine passports, we won't need to have lockdowns, and we'll be able to get our country back on track.
The question, therefore, is how many people would have died if there were vaccinations?
I thanks for that question, because I don't think that is a question that you can answer when the early intervention wasn't given. There's many doctors in America, overseas, who have treated thousands and thousands of patients with early intervention that have never had deaths. Dr. Pierre Corey treated 6,000 patients and not one single death, and he did that as an outpatient.
Barbara Jane, we all know that the United Australia Party is the party of what makes you think that Clive Palmer would be interested in anybody else but Clive Palmer?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I love that question. I get it every day. He has really been crucified in the media down here in the eastern states. in the northern states, they love him. He does a lot for the community. He's quite open about the fact that he's made more money than anybody during the pandemic. So if he was actually out for himself, he wouldn't be wanting to stop it, because he would keep it going because he'd be making more money. So he's not in it for himself. He is in it because he believes that Australia deserves a better way of living. He actually, right at the start of the pandemic, organised to donate doses of an early treatment for every man, woman and child in Australia. He paid $30 million for that, and he was told by the health department to bring it in. Once he got it here, he was told that he couldn't use it. It was banned. So it sat there in a warehouse, $30 million of his own money that didn't get used. That was a donation to Australia, and that's the measure of the man that I know that runs the party and uses his own money to fund a party with no vested interests.
Hi, my name's Phil Sandberg. Look, I'll just say to you and probably the other candidate there that unless we have a really virulent strain of COVID pop up, I can't see us going back into lockdowns, and I attribute that to vaccination. The hydroxychloroquine stuff, which you were just talking about, I think that would have probably been better served shipping to areas where they suffer from malaria, because that's what it's for. Now, this, I understand why you're representing the UAP, but honestly, it's a one issue. There's many other things. How are we going to keep interest rates at 3%? How's he going to do that? The whole fossil fuel thing, and the whole preferencing the Liberal Party to keep Labor out or the Greens out or whoever out. What do you say to all that?
That's a lot of questions, isn't it? So, what was the first question? Hydroxychloroquine there's a lot of drugs that get used off-label, okay, and that's a common practice in medicine. Gordon will tell you that. And so that is a treatment for COVID off-label, okay? And it was banned right at the early. There is many peer-reviewed studies to prove that it helps with COVID and recovery and prevention, okay? So that's that.
Name one. Oh, look it up now.
Rather than argue, please, 30 seconds, Barbara Jane, and then we'll move on.
Yeah. So what was the other interest
The
rates?
3%,
Yeah. So that is a question that I get also a lot, and it was in the past the interest rates were controlled by the government, and that was changed many years ago, and I'm not sure which year it was, but we plan to legislate to bring that control back to the government and not the RBA for this time. Because it's a legislation, it was changed in legislation, it can be changed back with legislation. Okay, thank you.